So we've got four speakers today, actually. Our first speaker is Heinz Gerd from Deutsche Telekom, who'll be talking through their commitment to renewables and the journey that they've taken. Then we've got Maya from Telefonica, who will be doing the same. And then the third and fourth speakers, we've got Alex and Ross from RE100, who will be talking about how they help businesses switch to 100% renewables. So without further ado, Heinz Gerd, if I pass over to you, please kick us off with your presentation. Oh, just to also say very quickly, sorry, Heinz Gerd, that we will have time for questions and answers after each presentation. So if the presenters could please keep to a maximum of 15 minutes, less would be preferable. And then we'll have about 5 minutes after each presentation for question and answers. You can either say the question afterwards or you can put it in the chat box and we'll come to it at the end of each presentation. Heinz Gerd, sorry, back over to you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Stephen. Yeah, I will keep under 15 minutes, I'm sure. I have only some slides. Yeah, and as you said, the focus is about renewable electricity, but does not work here. Okay, so you see the slides? Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
So,
but let me first start with our overall climate protection targets we decided on last year by our Board of Management. And as you can see here, we have emission reduction targets for the Scope 1 and 2 emissions until 2030 by 90% based on 2017. And I come to the renewables later on, so let me go further with the Scope 3 emissions target, which is 25%. If you can go on to some noise behind. Okay, thank you. Okay, the Scope 3 emissions target is 25%, also until 2030, based on 2017, which is a relative target. Overall, we want to have zero emissions for the Scope 1 and 2 emissions at the moment until 2050, the latest. I will focus on the latest because
has joined the conference.
Almost sure that it will be much earlier than 2050. There are already discussions going on within the company, also about thinking or covering Scope 3 emissions, but this is what we currently have, which was decided 2019. And the most important part of the target is of course, to achieve the 90% emission reduction, to go on 100% renewable electricity for the whole group already from 2021. So next year, we want to have 100% renewable electricity. The overall target was approved by the Science Based Target Initiative, so it's an approved science-based target. Just to let you know, it took us roughly a year, so we started already 2018 with the project team, which was consisting also from not only the German headquarters and the German national company, but also from international units like in Hungary, Greece, and also the very important US unit. So it's a real group target, a global target we have now. So let me go now to the developments of renewable electricity within our group. You can see here how this developed in the last years, with substantially increased within the DT group. If you see here the graph of the DT group, you can see that we had 52% share of renewables in 2018. 1 year later, the end of 2019 was already 64%, and we want to go, as I said, to 100% in 2021. At the bottom, you can see differentiated between different segments. There is Germany, especially there's US, then Europe, and our subsidiary for business solutions to systems. And yeah, they all have an increase in their shares of renewables. And yeah, the main drivers were really the purchase of guarantees of origin in Germany, as we all in Germany have a target of getting 100% already in 2020, so this year. And there were some new PPAs or wind parks, especially set up in 2019 in the US market for T-Mobile US. Want to also have it by 2021 100% electricity, renewable electricity consumption. So let me go to our overall strategy. So we have mainly three parts to get to the 100% renewables. So of course, very important are still guarantees origin, so those renewable electricity certificates. There's, some explanation. Most of you might know that it's a tracking instrument, and that, of course, the certificate has to be cancelled so that they will be accepted, and that also the external auditors accept it, and this, it's the purpose that I explain it again, that if you, for example, have a green tariff, like also the private home, it's the same. So the electricity suppliers have to cancel those certificates, because you have an electricity mix in your country, so in your network. So you cannot avoid that there is also conventional electricity within your net. So that's why it has to be cancelled. And what we expect is, due to the limited availability capacities, and that more and more companies, of course, also go or need to buy renewable electricity certificates, the costs probably increase, and it will have a high price volatility. But on the other hand, of course, there is indirect pressure on the market, so to expand capacity for renewable electricity, and we think this is a positive way behind those guarantees of origin, which are old in the EU, but also the it's called REX or RX certificates. Second main part of the strategy is to use more and more power purchasing agreements. What we realize is that those power purchase agreements are getting more and more compatible. So means competitive, means that the costs are not as high anymore than they were some years ago. So it's an alternative. Meanwhile, we have the situation that we have in the US market, T-Mobile US, that they cover their renewable electricity totally with PPAs. In this case, virtual PPAs, and also other national units of the GT Group are evaluating power purchase agreements as one alternative. In Germany, for example, we signed a contract of a physical PPA. Concretely, it's a wind park for the first time, actually, but there is a clear target to increase the share of those power purchase agreements in the midterm. Of course, we have to have in mind that the regulations are different in the countries, that also some security aspects are important, and there is also, of course, a risk strategy behind. Because as you know, electricity is, or electricity as a network provider is one of the most important aspects. Third part of our renewable strategy is own renewable generation. So, but here you can really see that this is a minor part at the moment. It's only 0.1% of the whole demand we have. Although we have, for example, only in Germany, more than 300 photovoltaic installations meanwhile, but the capacity is compared to what we really need for our operations is still very small. Anyway, we want to expand also the own renewable generation where it is possible, technically possible, and where it also makes economically sense. So here we can see more or less, what we generally work on, and first of all, independent from renewables, is that we try to reduce energy consumption where possible, or at least getting more efficient, increasing the energy efficiency of our operations. And we have several initiatives here in place. There's one big project, for example, in Germany. There's one for our European national companies within our European board area. We have a special project, more mid and long term, which is focusing on our network technology, and they also cooperate with our main suppliers in this regard. And we also monitor the developments around the energy efficiency within the companies. We have a special key performance indicator called energy intensity, which is the relation between the electricity or the consumption related to the IP data volume transferred. And as I already mentioned, we have the focus on power purchase agreements. We have within the group 40% share, more or less, power purchase agreements in Germany. There's a target to come to 10% in the next years. And last but not least, as I already said, we cannot avoid are the renewable electricity certificates. Just to mention, we do not have a central procurement for those certificates, neither for power purchase agreements or something like this. So we have more or less independent international units within the group. So they have to buy those renewables independently, but there is a central least the central support by our group procurement. So we cooperate, so I'm from the group corporate responsibility department, but we cooperate very closely with our group procurement. And we commonly developed a guideline for the purchasing of renewable electricity, which was handed out to all our units. And there are also some frame agreements for the whole group, but it's only an alternative. They are not obliged to use it. So it's more a kind of coordination, of course, also due to different regulations in the countries. Yeah, and let me say just one more point. When we decided, or the board of management decided on going to 100% renewables by 2021, we also decided to join RE100, as we think that RE100 is really important as an organization to support the developments around renewables and to take some pressure within the whole community, policymakers, and or in general stakeholders around the renewables topic. And so we think that RE100 is one important part of the overall transformation process. So that's what I wanted to say. Mainly the 15 minutes are over. So if you have any questions or discussion points, please go ahead.
Thanks very much, Heinz-Gerd. Appreciate that. I think there's one question that's just come through, actually. I don't know if you can see it on the chat. It's from colleagues in Turkcell. And the question is, what is the proportion of physical versus virtual PPAs? Do you think physical PPAs are possible? So I guess what is the split between your physical and your virtual PPAs?
Yeah, as I said, the main part for PPAs are at our colleagues from T-Mobile US and the US market, and these are completely virtual or financial PPAs. The minor part is more physical PPAs. It's Germany and also Netherlands. So it's more or less at the starting point. So we signed this contract about a wind park in Germany, for example, but it represents roughly 2% of the electricity consumption in Germany, but with the clear target to go to 10% in the next few years. In the long term, it will. I think I'm sure it will be even more.
Yeah.
But of course, it depends also on the different regulations you have, and so it's a complex thing in the different countries. As I said, it's independent within the group.
Thanks, Heinz-Gerd. We've got another question coming from Alex from TDC. How do you decide how you split your renewable electricity between guarantees of origin, PPAs, and self-generation to achieve 100% RE? How did you decide how much of each that you were going to purchase or invest in?
I mean, as I said, we decided on the new group climate targets, including going to 100% renewables in 2019. So we had last year a starting point, and we analyzed what we have in the different units. So all our units have to do a forecast on electricity consumption. So we established a monitoring process within the project, which was also decided on. So they have to do forecasts. They have also to forecast additional costs by buying renewables. and in most of times it's certificates or RECs or guarantees of origin within the EU, and there were no, of course, also depending on the size of the units, PPAs. So we only had really in the US market those financial PPAs, but decided then in Germany, as I said, to go more into PPAs. And the general strategy is also to focus more on PPAs, but this takes some time.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks, Heinz-Gerd. We're just in the interest of time. We'll move along now to our next speaker, Maya from Telefonica. Thanks, Heinz-Gerd. But there may be more questions for you later on, so please stay on the line. Maya from Telefonica, who's going to talk about Telefonica's approach to renewable electricity. Similarly to DT, you've also got 100% renewable target that you've been achieving. So, Maya, if I hand over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Stephen, for inviting us. So, yeah, okay, great. So I'm going to skip this about Telefonica because I don't think we have time for, well, going deep on the companies, and we all know each of us. So just a quick view on our climate strategy. Telefonica's commitment on climate strategy is really to reduce our impact of our main operations, and also we have a great focus in decarbonizing the economy through digitalization, so through our products and services. So therefore you're going to see different kind of targets for that and objectives. We have here like a kind of resume of our performance in this environmental topic. We have issued 2 green bonds until now of 1.5 million euros. We have been able to remain in the CDPA list for 6 years in a row, and also we as mentioned, we have a great focus on our what we call EcoSmart services, so the services that can avoid emissions in our clients. And in 2019, we have been able to avoid 3.2 million tons of CO2. We have measured this with Carbon Trust. So in terms of our energy and emissions performance, and we are going to see later about renewable energy, but overall at global level, we are 82% renewables, but in our 4 main markets, which are Spain, Germany, Brazil, and the UK, we are already 100% renewable, and we are going to see later how we achieve this. We have been able to reduce our carbon emissions by 50% between 2015 and 2019, and our energy consumption per data traffic, so energy efficiency, we have been able to reduce it in the same timeline, 72%. In terms of our employee bonus, 1% of the employees' bonus is linked to the emissions reduction in each country and at the global level. And we have, also a performance in waste management, so related with how we manage and recycle our waste, and all things related with with environmental management systems and so on. But I'm going to skip this just to go to the direct presentation. So in terms of our climate goals, as we cover all related with climate change targets are related with renewable energies and efficiency, because we need both strategies to achieve emissions reduction. In terms of renewable energy, we have committed to be 100% renewable at a global level by 2030. Although I have mentioned before that we have achieved this in our 4 main markets by last year. So in terms of the energy efficiency, we are committed to be more efficient in terms of the energy we consume by data traffic, so by petabyte, and we have committed to reduce it by 85% between 2015 and 2025, and all this contributing to reducing our own carbon emissions. Scope 1 and Scope 2, we have committed to become net zero by 2030 in our 4 main markets again, but worldwide become carbon neutral or net zero by 2050. And reduce it in the same time, at the same time in 2030, we are going to reduce it by 72%. So in our supply chain, we have also targets, as Deutsche Telekom mentioned before, so we reduce it by 30% between 2016 and 2025, and we have also a target to become more relevant in terms of decarbonizing the economy, and we are going to avoid 1 ton of CO2 by 10 tons of CO2 by each one we are going to emit in 2025. Our targets are aligned with the 1.5 degree scenario and validated by the Science Based Target Initiative. And just going through this very quickly, but I have to highlight that between the 1.5 and the 2 degrees scenario, it looks like it's only half of a degree, but in terms of the carbon emissions, we have to reduce them quite a lot. So it's not about it's relevant. So we have to really focus on because we want to reduce as much as we can before achieving this net zero strategy. So before compensating our emissions. And how we can reduce our emissions? Well, we all know that we depend on the electricity consumption. 90% of our emissions come from the electricity. So our renewable strategy is a key is really key issue, and having said that, we have to become 100 renewable in all our 4 main markets. But how we are going to become renewable? It's a key strategy also in terms of the OPEX. So we want to do it reducing our energy OPEX. For sure, reducing our carbon emissions in the less risky way, with the less price volatility, and also improving the company positioning. All things related with investors and clients. Externally well position the company. So this is our performance until 2019. So was as I mentioned, in 2015 we started with 20% renewable, and that was mainly thanks to our markets in the UK and in Germany. But you can see then in 2016 we started our strategy in renewable energy plan, and there we are impulsing it very much in all the rest of the markets. I think it's different. If you have a geographic roadmap only in Europe, or in Europe and Latin America, or in Europe in the United States, or in Europe or in Africa, so it makes a very big difference, because the opportunities there, or this is very regulated market, the energy market I'm mentioning, it's then you have different opportunities that you can use. So for that, I may say that we are 100 renewable in our 4 main markets, and becoming, moving from this 82% to the 100, it looks like it's not a lot, but it's really tough, because we have there a lot of the different business operations in place in Latin American countries, so Argentina, Ecuador, Colombia, Mexico, and there we have different recent regulations and opportunities. In some cases, even there's no an IREC market already. So in how is, and this is a very clarificating slide. So how we are going to become renewable in the future? It's going, the proportion of renewable certificates of either guarantees of origin or IREX, it's going to be less. So the green line, it's only, what is not renewable. So, but the proportion of how this self-generation is going to improve, although the percentage of it, we don't see it's going to be a lot, but it's going to be relevant, sure. In terms of the proportion of renewable purchase agreements, so PPAs and renewable certificates, we see that it's going to be changing in the future, and we are very much focused on this. But why? So in terms of, I'm going to go through the different alternatives. So self-generation, and I think it's very much I mean, we have the same strategy and as Deutsche Telekom, and for sure of many of you. So anything that it's about renewable, it's good for us. We have to use the three alternatives. So self-generation, guarantees of origin, and PPAs agreement. But we have to use them in the way that they are contributing to reduce our energy OPEX, to position it as better, and to help us to be more to be less risk to have less risks in the energy consumption. So self-generation, we have already many use cases. So not only in base stations, but also in roofs. Thanks that we are in some countries like Spain or Latin American countries where we can there's a lot of installation, and we can use this kind of solution. The ROI is, so the return of the investment, is still a barrier in some cases, and also we have some projects also using third-party capex, which is helping us to develop some other initiatives. There's also some regulatory incentives arising in some countries that we are looking at this with because it will help us to reduce the ROI, and also in terms of how we see it, our investors, they are seeing this as could be part, and they are part of our green bond, the last green bond we have issued, so that's good. And also, I mean, apart from the ROI, maybe we have to see this like really a long-term sustainability infrastructure. So they last over 20 years, so we have maybe and this is what we are having internal conversations to really impulse this kind of solutions. We have some infrastructures and interesting projects in Uruguay already, and in Spain, and also in base stations that are not connected to the grid. That's the more easier one. But there we have also, as I mentioned, other examples. In terms of the renewable energy agreements, so what we call PPAs, so we have really a preference on the ones that have additional capacity to the country, and those are the PPAs that we have signed already. They are not virtual but physical PPAs. We have a PPA in Mexico of over 30% of the consumption there, and a PPA in Spain of around 5% of the consumption we have in the country. And also we have a different figure, which is not PPA, but it's a distributed generation agreement. What about once it's going to finalize all the different installations, it's going to achieve around 40 or maybe over 40% of our consumption in Brazil, which is huge. And just to share with you, we have we are finding some complications during this signing an agreement, things related with the accounting, with the guarantees of the consumption, the risk in the currency. That's mainly in some countries of Latin America. So there are some issues that really does really complicate this process. So this is why we are all taking time to sign a PPA. So, but for sure this is going to change in the future. We have some also regulatory barriers in Latin American countries, more than the ones that we can find in Europe, and also there are for sure there are opportunities coming up, and again, this is a long-term sustainability strategy, and we have savings. This is also a very important issue in all our companies. And just to end my presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about the certificates. So they are necessary to achieve the 100 renewable strategy. They are not yet available in all our footprint. So in some Latin American countries, they are beginning to be, but not in all of them already. And how we see it, it's so they are necessary, but they are going also to increase our energy cost. So we prefer the other two, but we have to also remain using renewable certificates apart for the other true strategies. And this is what we wanted to share with you. I'm well happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maya. Very useful presentation. Great to see all the activity going on at Telefonica. We do have one question actually to start off with from Gabrielle at BT. So on your 10 to 1 target, does the 1 cover your end-to-end emissions, including your value chain?
No, we are comparing their scope 1 and scope 2 with the emissions we are avoiding in our clients. So no, we are not including their scope 3. And we are already almost 3 to 1. And I just forget to mention that we are part of the RE initiative. So, and I think it's because they are going to be part of the presentation later on. I think it's very useful for all of us to be part of some initiative that is impulsing this at the global level. So we are part of the RE initiative since, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Thank you.
Thanks, Maya.
Hello.
Hello. Who's that?
Yeah, actually, this is Sahai from Reliance Jio. I have one question because the madam had shown the slide between 2015 and 2019. The renewable energy was ramped up from 20% to 82%. I have the question, what was the quantum of power required and how much, how did we manage? Through what renewable energy means we could do it?
Well, I'm not sure if I get everything, but our energy consumption is around 7 terabytes hour per year, between 7, 8. So, and we have been almost stable in our consumption. But how we have been able to pass from this 20 to maybe more than double, it was thanks to our buying guarantees of origin in Spain and starting our renewable energy strategy also in Brazil. So focusing in our main markets there and using the opportunities we have there. So buying renewable certificates, if you are in a European market, is not difficult. It's only about money and negotiating with your suppliers and convincing the company to really position on that. So we have been able to do that, and once you do a step forward, then you cannot go back. So and now what we are doing internally is very much focused on signing PPAs and self-generation. So finding other opportunities to also be most efficient in terms of cost and positioning. So, and I think we have a lot of things to do there, and we have been able to do some to have some examples as I have shared with you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Maya before we move on? Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Maya. Thank you. Great. In which case, let's move on to our final presentation as part of the renewables, and this will be by Alex and by Ross. Great, thanks, Ross. That's come through perfectly. And I think, Alex, you're kicking us off first.
Thanks, Stephen, and hello to all of you. I think we have like 70-something people on the line. That's great. Also, let me know if the noise gets a bit echoey.
A little bit of feedback, but we'll see how we go. Maybe Ross, actually, if you could just come.
Okay, great. And yeah, fantastic case studies from two of our members. Thanks a lot for that. Ross, can you go to our fabulous logo slide, please? Thank you. Great. So as most of you know, RE100 brings together major companies committed to sourcing 100% renewable electricity globally in the shortest possible time frame by 2050 at the latest. We've experienced remarkable growth even during COVID. We've had 30 members join, with several more lined up to join during Climate Week. And results from our Climate Greek COVID survey show that more than 96% of companies, for more than 96% of companies, climate action is just as, if not more important to their company now than before the pandemic. We also set the bar for corporate leadership on renewable electricity, holding members to account and celebrating their achievements to encourage others to follow. Next slide, please. So for the next few minutes, I would like to take you through a more inside track view of how we view market creation and the work we are doing to help RE100 members and other companies source green power. We are continuing to build up the demand signal, which is stage 1 there, and RE100 has now become a marker of corporate renewables demand. Bloomberg New Energy Finance recently said RE100 is an indicator for the health of the clean energy market post-COVID, but the campaign is also evolving in parallel to focus more on impact and enabling infrastructure to achieve our mission. Last year, over 10% of renewables capacity was added globally through corporate PPAs, but that's really a drop in the ocean when compared to the commercial and industrial sector's overall power demand, which is roughly 2/3 of the world's end use of electricity. Solar and wind are now the cheapest power sources in more than 2/3 of the world. By 2030, these technologies are going to undercut commissioned coal and gas almost everywhere, but we are still far, far away from a net zero world. Analysis shows that renewables markets, specifically in offshore wind, they mature after around 3 to 4 gigawatts of installed capacity. So that's when the markets go through a sort of phase change, enabling to reach a low new price norm. These first few gigawatts are really, really important for all market participants to learn, and it allows the market to overcome major obstacles before reaching pricing that can and nuclear generation. RE100 members have identified over 40 countries where sourcing renewables is impossible or incredibly difficult due to market and policy barriers, which are often linked. So we need to address these barriers and to allow a market-led transition and to encourage our members to go further and faster by using their voice to influence policymakers and even their suppliers. Next slide, please. So we are activating the 100% commitment, and that helps us to move closer to achieving our mission of accelerating change towards zero carbon grids at global scale. Last year, we brought together RE100 members in 9 countries. We've had the Global Members Forum at Climate Week, did buyers boot camps in the Netherlands, and members meetings and consultations and workshops in Australia, the UK, India, South Korea, Japan, Poland, and also a couple of conferences in the US. And this year we're doing much more of the same. Next slide, please. So how do we go about activating the RE100 commitment? Next slide. We first present the business case for renewables to a wide array of influential stakeholders, from the G20 Planning Committee on Climate Change, the European Parliament, and to ministries across Asia Pacific. RE100 has received high-level public endorsements, including even by the president of the Taiwanese authorities. The message that companies want easy access to renewables is delivered far and wide by the climate group networks and by our partners, which is helping to raise the profile of corporate sourcing globally and changing the media narratives. For example, very recently, we've had TSMC, the world's largest pure-play semiconductor manufacturer, join us, and we helped to pitch the story through our networks and received a lot of media attention, which is building the movement across East Asia. The Korea Times article you see there, RE100 emerging as a new risk for Korean firms, highlights the growing pressure on Korean companies and the government to step up on renewables, reporting claims that RE100 is becoming an indicator that gauging corporate competitiveness. In an interview, the Korean Development Institute, KDI, school dean said it's the government's role to give businesses a clear signal with policy consistency, and then investment flows can follow, even suggesting that Korea can potentially repurpose its shipbuilding infrastructure to become a renewables leader like Denmark has. So this is really the kind of message that we're trying to get across, that by embracing an investor-friendly environment, countries can help meet their energy and climate targets, and also, other ambitions that they may have. Next slide, please. So we also highlight the barriers to economic benefits of renewables. At the Russian Association of Wind Energy event earlier in the year, pre-COVID times, I delivered the message, the RE100 message in Moscow to key stakeholders, including ministers and the regulator, And we also brought together members with Russian footprints to identify the barriers they are facing. I also helped design a policy influencing approach to help unlock the Russian market, starting with green certificates at the intensive collabs of IKEA's One Home, One Planet event last week. Next slide. And we are currently designing a set of regional policy working groups that will likely focus on Japan, Korea, and India, with the potential of member-led country policy task forces. We recently approved a global RE100 policy message, and several members from our advisory committee, including Apple, AB InBev, Google, and IKEA, advised on the 6 key asks that will enable a competitive market for businesses to buy renewables. On the right-hand side, you'll see 3 key milestones. So the first one is on Japan, and with our partner there, JCLP, because of our work together, including coming up with a set of specific policy asks for Japan, allowed us to get support for on-site PPAs, equivalent to around US $50 million, in the COVID package. And then in Korea, we're expecting to see the introduction of RE100 policies soon, by January 2021, most likely. And then lastly, on the landmark EU legislation that we got into the clean energy package with our research partners, the knock-on effects of that have been really, really impressive. It's ended up spearheading lots of other big policy changes, such as an updated ETS guidelines that will come into effect this January. And these will have new criteria for energy-intensive users to demonstrate how they're greening their power, including through corporate PPAs, which will enable them to qualify for compensation they can't currently access. In the current ETS guidelines, energy-intensive users have economic incentives to use non-renewable power. So that is a very, very big win. Slide, please. Lastly, for my part, I just wanted to mention that through CDP, we're also able to provide technical advice to members as well as to governments on how to comply with RE100 credible sourcing criteria. So environmental attribute certificates are an essential foundation block in the creation of an effective renewable electricity market. They not only provide surety to customers that the electricity they're buying is renewable, they are necessary for demonstrating this to their customers, investors, and other interested parties, including through their RE100 reporting. CDP has done a technical check of these in China, Japan, and an initial phase in Korea. And some of those are a little bit more nuanced, but obviously we're happy to provide any more additional information. So now I'll hand it over to Ross, who will take you through how we can help our members.
Great, thanks, Alex. So, moving on. RE100 gives members and their stakeholders confidence that they're making a credible commitment. Across all industries, risk management and cost savings are key drivers for our members. Some of the other drivers are more industry dependent. Around 50% of our members are in the consumer goods industry, where customer expectations will be more important. Currently, 4% of our members come from the telecom sector. These include some of the most progressive companies, such as BT, that is ambitiously working. Sorry.
Internet problem hota.
Can somebody put themselves on mute? Thank you. Such as BT, that's ambitiously working with their suppliers to push their RE100 commitment further. Companies are also increasingly becoming aware of co-benefits like better staff satisfaction and retention as people become more climate conscious. So how can becoming an RE100 member support you as a company on your journey to 100% renewable electricity? RE100 is run by the Climate Group in partnership with CDP, as Alex has touched on, who are technical partners on the initiative. They wrote our technical criteria and they run the annual reporting process for members. This ensures that the commitment is credible and transparent. Whilst we're not a consultancy, so can't help you write your renewable electricity strategy, the RE100 team at CDP can help you interpret our technical criteria to ensure that your sourcing strategy is compliant. The criteria serves as a blueprint for renewable electricity sourcing, giving confidence to all stakeholders that it's being done with the correct level of rigour. CDP also bring their technical expertise to technical papers and market briefings that RE100 release. On this slide, you can see our latest market briefing on Japan that's available on our website in Japanese and English. Japan is a notoriously difficult market in which to source renewables, so this paper looks at strategies and best practice to source renewable electricity in the country. Please take a look at our website for other interesting papers as well. Peer learning is another area where we facilitate knowledge exchange and the sharing of best practice between members. CDP run our Gold Member webinar series. These take place once a month, where members share case studies and best practice from their experience of renewable sourcing. Experts in the field also get invited to share their knowledge with Gold members as well. The pictures along the top show the Resource conference from last year. Resource is our European platform for corporate renewable energy sourcing. RE100 is a founding partner of the platform. The Resource conference is the world's largest gathering of renewable energy buyers and suppliers. R100 members can attend for free. It provides 3 days of knowledge exchange and matchmaking between buyers and sellers. Last year, we ran a buyers boot camp on the first day where companies from different industries could raise and tackle key challenges that they face. We've done another version of the bootcamp for GSMA this year. The pictures on the bottom left show a member-only workshop that we ran in London at London Climate Action Week last year. This brought together landlords and tenants as well as industry experts from the Better Building Partnership to discuss sourcing renewable electricity in leased premises, which members often find challenging. By bringing both groups together, it provided an opportunity to explore solutions and work out how they can best work together to overcome the challenge. And on the bottom right, you can see the Climate Group's flagship event, Climate Week New York. This takes place every year and will this year be on a virtual platform. This is the biggest climate summit in the world and brings together leaders from both business and government. It's hosted in association with the United Nations and the City of New York. At Climate Week, we host a series of forums, discussions and workshops, including the RE100 members meeting, that bring together the expertise and influence of the public and private sectors. This is an incredible place for sustainability professionals to network, collaborate and learn about the latest trends in the space. Becoming an RE100 member means that you become part of our global ecosystem to drive climate action. I wanted to share some examples of how we've helped members in their RE100 journey to 100% renewable electricity. One of our large technology members wanted to speak to another member in the tech space that had engaged their supply chain on sourcing renewables. We connected them with 2 industry leaders doing just that, and they're still sharing best practice on supply chain engagement today. Similarly, a world-leading food and beverage company wanted to understand how to best engage their franchises in their renewable electricity journey. We put them in touch with 2 other global food and beverage companies, and they were able to support by sharing their experiences. Another example is an international grocery store retailer who wanted to understand more about the PPA market in Central Europe and the limitations of the market there. We were able to share the knowledge that we have on that, and were able to connect them into a number of industry experts through our resource platform, enabling them to be fully informed and to build their strategy in that region. Finally, a global insurer wanted help when developing their strategy in 7 markets that they were finding particularly challenging to source renewable electricity. We were able to connect them with 6 members with operations in all of those geographies so that they could share their experience and best practice in those countries. So becoming an RE100 member is a key enabler to you achieving 100% renewable electricity. We can provide detailed technical support, unrivaled peer learning, and embed you in a global ecosystem of experts, local industry specialists, and like-minded peers that can really propel your renewables journey forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ross. And thank you to Alex as well for that overview of the great work that you guys are doing at RE100 and how you're helping your members switch to 100% renewable electricity. So I think we've got one question that came through on the chat from Daniel at Telefonica. And this is RE100 considering to admit the renewable electricity coming from the electricity mix of the country in those countries that are already 100% RE or very close, for example, Uruguay or Costa Rica, specifically because there is not a guarantee of origin or IREX scheme implemented? It's quite a technical question. Hopefully, Alex, you
I have an
understand what
answer.
Daniel means by that, and you can explain what the answer
Yes.
is.
I have an answer. It's not a very, very clear one, but what I can say is that currently we do not accept the grid mix
Has left the conference.
of renewables from a country. However, we are currently coming up with a position on countries that are 95% or above. So basically those that that Daniel has listed in his example, that also do not have any sort of renewable electricity certificate scheme. So it's a wait and see, but we will be communicating with members as and when we have some more.
Thank you, Alex. Other questions for RE100 or any of our presenters today? Got another question come through. Oh, Daniel, just saying thank you. Okay, looks like that's all the questions. So thank you very much to all our presenters for this session on renewables.